the quest at hand, which is the questions. No questions have been submitted beforehand, so the floor is open for your questions if there are any. Ask about anything. Please ask the board, not ask questions of anyone, but mainly the board. I forgot to introduce myself, so I'm Mari Lehtoruusu, the fresh chairperson of the HYY Council, and let's have a wonderful day today. Looks like that there are no ad hoc questions and no requests for the floor have been submitted on the chat side, so we may move during the question hour so that when you wish for the floor, you should just ask for it on chat. Right, PP, aka pyyntö in Finnish, request for the floor. But if no questions that have been submitted at this stage for the board, we have some program. So we may start. Give this floor to Jenna, who's Syl godparent. So you may, with your own words, tell some tidings from the national level. Wonderful. Thank you. And hello, everyone. So I am Jenna Rautionaho. I am the Syl godparent for HYY. My sectors are EU Advocation, International Students, and European Student Union, which can be said that is our umbrella organization in Europe. I've been requested here to present some of our parliamentary elections plan, which will be in the upcoming year, and of course the following spring, the largest focal point. We of course want the voice of the student union and students to be heard in the elections. If it's okay, I could share a few slides on the matter. Easier for all of you to stay on track. You should see the PowerPoint now. Start with to new representative council and old members that Syl in 5 bullet points. So we are the national level advocate for students and student unions, set up in 21, and we represent about 130,000 university students or higher education students. We do advocacy for your behalf on a national level, and of course through the ESU we advocate on an EU level on the European side of things. On our large points and large focal points are decided by the General Assembly. Some of you were there. Of course, select a new chairperson and decide on the policy paper and the plans of action and all the other documents. But our everyday is being run by our office and our board. Chairperson plus the rest of the board. Here we have a picture of our current board and our individuals. So from left to right, we have Suvi Tuuli, me. Front up, we have Konsta. Behind Konsta, we have Tiina. Next, Katariina. And then Tuomas. You may contact any of us on a very low threshold. If you have anything to ask, please ask if you have any questions. Now, some issues on the parliamentary elections, but before diving into that, I wish to say a few words on the Ukraine situation. So it is something that most of us have been thinking about today and will affect our life in the future, at least in the political sense. We recognize the situation and we've taken a stance on the situation. So we show solidarity with Ukraine and hopefully we can maybe get a solution. We have the Students at Risk system to support students in Ukraine. For example, refugees fleeing the war who are studying could finish their studies abroad. But then to the parliamentary election program itself. On a historical point, what has happened before we reached this situation? So the preparation has started last year, and for the fall, we carried out a survey to the student unions where prioritization, wishes, etc. were gathered. Where we are here currently, we have the first draft ready, and it is on the first round of comments. We have time to comment until tomorrow, and who will have a statement ready by tomorrow. The goal here is to have the plan ready by the end of next month. Hopefully, we'll get that internationally translated into English and Swedish and then into print. To mention on the parliamentary plan, what's the focus point? Kind of a broad, kind of something for everyone. So the goal is that we would have themes that could fit any political party. And when doing this trailblazing this, so we could be some of the parties that will discuss this first. And of course, currently we are updating the big picture. In a very short time, we might have large changes that affect the entire political spectrum. So it's not prudent to have these very specific goals because we don't know what the discussion will go towards and what kind of development topics will we have in the parliamentary elections. What will be the hot topics of discussion? We'll still have the budgets and upcoming sessions for the current parliament, so we'll see if we have good news for students. Hopefully, well, it's something that we can strive towards. In the fall, we will clarify the message and do the campaign. Everything is moving and in the works, so on the contents itself, we have 8 central points. We will go through one by one next. Large themes include higher educational politics, well-being, subsistence, living, internationality, and generation and gender politics. The story that we want to tell in a nutshell has to do with the fact that students have suffered for a long time. We had not enough resources, not enough subsistence, problematic situations, of course, work, the labor situation, and the climate situation. So during the next parliamentary system is that we want to return students to a good state. So building a sustainable future for young people and students. Number 1, the funding of education, as we all know, and we say that we have had the funding situation for a long time. There's not enough money. And we want that if we want the goal of 50% people with higher education, so thinking of our bullet points, what we need to focus on to ensure efficiency in universities and higher education learning institutions. Number 2, we have well-being and diverse student university communities create new learning. We take a stance on what the community should be like, what measurements and meters can be used, how to prevent people from interrupting their studies, and how to move more people into higher education. And now that we have made the accessibility plan ready, we want people to read it and take heed of its points. And to ensure higher education for everyone. Number 3 would be to solve the mental health crisis. The therapy guarantee is something that we want to get through, but that in itself is just not enough alone. What can be done preventively, and how to support students in different stages of their studies, and to prevent people from quitting their studies. To how to make this the study parts easier. It's something to focus on. Also, that we recognize that everything is connected, is that an adequate subsistence is important for students to stay well. We need more student allowances, increase the number of months that you can get student aids, and it looks like we'll be getting the requirements regarding student income and the upper limits. That's something that looks good on that front already, so we may do the adequate changes and check this in 1 year. On meal support, because food will be more expensive in the future, that should be notified in the future as well. The large social security reform is also coming, so the students should be included in the decision making. Number 5, housing. Everybody should have a flat or a home. Solutions onto how to get as much student housing as is required, and that they would meet the needs of students. We also need a good and climate controlled sustainable construction. Number 6 would be international students strengthening Finland. We have good goals on how we want more international knowledge and expertise here. And we want to multiply the amount of international students here, and to ensure that they stay in Finland after graduation. So one of our goals would be to relinquish the tuition fees and to ease the entirety of the costs, improve language-related issues for all students. International transition is something that is discussing even without the coronavirus. The amount of people moving from country to country has dropped dramatically, so we need something to remedy that. We also have our students at risk system is something that we want definitely up and running, to be visible in all parties' political plans, and to get it working. Also, point in the Ukraine crisis. Also been discussing this in many parts. Number 7, we have the climate change. We demand carbon neutrality in all investments. Want to take the environment into account, and all effects to the climate should be considered when making decisions. Of course, the system should be changed so that we will guide activities to a more green style. As the last theme, we have from internship to retirement, a more fair working life to students. We hope to try to get internships and all the related parts to be equal. Also changes to the retirement and pension system to ensure that it's sustainable in the future as well. So, next steps, what happens next? So, if we can get the first drafts done, get the program ready, and we'll start our advocacy We will affect the political party programs, so to see our themes in them. In the fall, we will be planning the parliamentary election campaign, and in the fall, we will be doing the last bit to get our goals through and our views heard. And then in the parliamentary plan, we also want our goals to be visible, so they can actually be done. The point is to do together to create the advocacy process in the best possible way and to get all the student unions involved. We want to hear your thoughts and your wishes, and this is a good point to make these exclamations and wishes known. So thank you. Here are my contact info. If you want to send me any emails or ask questions, please contact me. You're going to always catch me by email or SMS or phone, and contact any of us at the office. I think my time was used up pretty easily, so thank you for having me here and telling our news from Seoul. Have a wonderful meeting. So thank you. Again, now your informative part. Do we have the representative council members with any questions? We may take one or two. May ask for the floor through chat if you want. I interpret that there are no questions. The presentation was so thorough. So thank you very much to Jenna. And let's, we'll get an election soon, shall we? So next up we would have Riina Karvonen maybe say some words about our medium to long-term financial plan. Thank you. Hello. Hopefully my Abra is working. So the medium long-term financial plan, we are being updating it during our term, and we will have some larger parts where we'll have to notify some specifics, because when we did the previous plan, nobody realized that we'd have this kind of pandemic up and running. We know that the pandemic was up, but we didn't know how long it would continue. One big thing is concerning the facilities at Viikki, and we'll tell how the survey went. And the KTS, the financial plan, the 2023 facilities, we'd find a facility in Viikki, rent it so that it would be in use onwards from 23. And we'll create this survey or report. We did this report last year as a consultancy job, and as a final point, we just came to the conclusion that there just isn't a facility available in Viikki. It just does not exist in the area. Then we expanded the area, looking at places near Viikki that would have good public transport connections. We found some options, but this kind of facility rental would cost approximately 100,000 euros a year, because in addition to renting, we would have renovation costs, other costs that we would need to renovate it pretty broadly. So, and as a result, we found out that this situation would be something that we should look into at during the financial plan, because in this situation, which we obviously couldn't see beforehand because the pandemic, we should maybe rethink the requirement at this point, that do we have 100,000 euros to spend each year. So should we postpone this? And we also did this notification that when we're talking about the financial plan, we're doing the same in Meilahti and Kumpula. And of course, currently they have not been done, but if they are being undertaken, you should reserve at least a few €1,000 per survey just to get the survey and statements done and the analysis concluded. It would probably be more than 100,000 since we are closer. We need the facilities from the central Helsinki area, so that would probably be more costly than Viikki. So this as for your information, dear representative council members. So this is the situation with the financial plan. Do you have any questions? I did this whole report in a few minutes. Wow. So thank you, Riina. Do you have any questions regarding this for the representative council? We have a question from Riikka Kokko, yes. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for the presentation. I'd like to ask that what have been your board's next steps regarding the financial plan and the update in comparison to these or relation to these Viikki facilities? Have you thought of options to get this done? Thank you. So no options on. We don't really have any options at this point. We have just been looking at this is the current situation. This is something that will come to the Financial Real Estate Committee on what steps should be taken. It's possible to postpone this by a few years because of the pandemic once again and the changes. We need to think of the effects it had. So the current situation is as stated. Did I answer the question well? It looks like yes. Okay. Thank you for the questions. Do we have any other questions? At this stage, because we didn't have any questions at the start of the question hour, I give the opportunities that if you have thought of any questions at this point. You may have the question now. We have a request for the floor from Alex here. Thank you, Chairperson. Hello, Representative Council. I would like to, at this stage, to say that even though we didn't have questions now, please be on a low threshold to contact our board and our experts in the time between the meetings. HYY and from the bottom of the screen, we have the staff panel, so contact us. So you can contact me. So we will answer the possible questions between the meetings, that's all. So, have a good meeting. So, good. Thank you very much to Alexi at this point. I don't see any requests for the floor at this point. So I will conclude that let's have a short meeting break at 4 minutes, continuing at 17 on the dot. See you then.
for 2022. Opening the meeting at 5:02. Chairing the meeting, we have Mari Lehtoruusu, and as Secretary General Mikko Kymäläinen. And the same in Swedish and English. And opening of the meeting. The Representative Council meeting begins. The agenda has been available the Student Union's official notice board from 14th February 2022. The meeting invitation has also been delivered to each representative on the above mentioned date. The rector of the university has been informed about the matters on the agenda, and they have not delivered a written comment to the meeting that a certain emerging matter would not be suitable for the purposes of the student union. I consider that the meeting is convened in accordance with the regulations. Next, composition of the Representative Council. The following changes have been reported to the composition of the Representative Council. Opening discussion. Closing the discussion. Exceptions and resignations granted. Next, we will have the roll call. I ask the Secretary General to perform the roll call. Yes, and as before, when you hear your name, please let us know that you're here. Yes, Joonata Haapalainen will be coming in late. don't know if Siru Haapamäki will be attending. It appears that they're on Zoom, but can't get their voice heard. Yes, Siru is here. Their microphone just isn't working. I don't know about Kari ja Samuli. We'll look into it. Palsaara is in exchange in Switzerland. She has notified the office about it. But yes, I'm her deputy. I kind of guessed this would happen because I haven't received the link to the meeting. But yes, Palsaara will not be here during the whole spring. Yes, because she's abroad. Okay, I'll correct this. Do you have all the material? Yes, I think so. Yes, we'll mark this down. Thank you. Partanen Linnea. Yes, I'm here. Yes, we have 54 representatives present, 6 absent. Excellent. Let's move on to the quorum of the meeting. The meeting has quorum since there are more than 30 representatives present. So understand, we don't need to grant the right to attend to anyone. But if this is not the case, please let us know now. Yes, so we can move on to the examiners of the minutes. I invite the following reps and council members to examine the minutes. Milla Kataisto and Inka Sylgren. Let's move on to approving the agenda. The agenda delivered to reps and council members as follows. If Secretary General, if you could please put it up. Can you see it? Not yet. Opening discussion on the agenda. Closing discussion on the agenda. The agenda is approved. Now we can proceed to address items on the agenda. First, we have supplementation of the Parliamentary Committee. Opening discussion. Linna Partonen from Sitfas. Thank you. And the composition for the Parliamentary Committee, regular members Linna Partonen, Valpuri Alonen, Jonna Rajala, and deputy members Riina Rönkkä, Riikka-Petteri Kyllönen, and Venla Kinnunen. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Any other request for floor? Yes, then the supplementation of the Central Election Committee. Roponen. Valiokunta supplement the Central Election Committee so that Kasper Enkel will be the regular member and Sakari Mäkelä will be the deputy member. Thank you. No other request for floor sent beforehand. But yes, Riikka Kokko requests the floor. Riikka, go ahead. Yes, thank you. we sent a request for floor through the forum or speech. Can I hold it now? Yes, of course. I'm sorry, I just skipped over it. Just help several these updates for the preparatory committee. Riikka Kokko, Joonas Tolonen, and Arttu Lahtaheri as regular members. And Joonatan Haapalainen, Tuomas Aho, and Matias Posa as deputy members. And for the Central Selection Committee, regular members Alexander Pietilä, deputy member Maria Peltonen, and Jenny Björklund. Thank you. Thank you. Now I don't see any other request for floor. Of course, if you have, of course, I will grant the floor if you request it. If not, we can move to item 2, announcements for the Representative Council. So we have news from the central office. Please, the board, the floor is yours. First, boomer point. We have a competition in the board that who is the best, most skilled in computer-related matters. But yes, as before, we'll inform the Representative Council what we have done at the office. A very concise presentation, and then we have some time for questions as well. We also have other board members present who can answer your questions. Yes, I succeeded in sharing my screen, so let's move forward. Yes. We have Fiona and Janne standing in for our experts who have been on study leave. They'll be working until in this post till next week. Give them some cake as thanks for their great work they have done during the start of the year. We have a new intern, Pia, for event production for big projects, especially the Flora Day. Also, another change in our educational policy, Jenna has resigned because she moved on to doctoral studies. So Mariana stood in for her. And she succeeded very well in this task, so we made this post permanent for her. So Mariana there on the right in the bottom, and Pia is on the bottom on the left. Fiona and Janne are there, the top pictures. Some ongoing recruitments. We don't have any staff recruitments, but I'll remind you that the applications open for several committees until next week. Student members to Ylva board, to the Central Election Committee, and to the board of editors for Ylioppilaslehti. So many good positions open. Then events. A lot of stuff coming up. Now, this year, this May Day, we'll be giving Manta her cap. Preparing to do it physically this time. Actually there. We have a 12-person volunteer crew, the Manta crew. And as the director of the team, we have Sophie Nyysen and Arttu Mäkinen. A very good crew there. Excellent people. For the Flora's Day, I confirmed the date. You can mark it in your calendars, the 13th of May. It will be held in Kumpula, in the Botanical Garden. Excellent place for it. Planning all kinds of events, activities there together with the university. The sign up for that opens on April. And the Suursitsit that we had to postpone from last summer, we are hoping to organize it now this spring. And the survey for a number of seats for associations for the SITSI is open until the 28th of February. We are working together with the student nations and the HYY's producer. Then about the tutors. I've done tutor training. That has been a lot of work. A shared responsibility with the university. There's a tutor adventure coming up. Both physically in person, but also some Moodle material. We're planning to have a live event, 2 days. You can see the dates here. And then social politics. Started the implementation of the action plan in the equality sector. We are working on that, on drafting the program for the measures. And Syl also discussed with Syl and Allianssi about the advocacy related to social security reform. And then also the Quo situation for student healthcare, which is very concerning. We have looked at it, followed it. But the development for the therapy guarantee looks good, but let's see how it will work in practice, its implementation. Then we also have some legislative changes related to housing, which we'll try to lobby or influence together with Syl and Haas. Then educational policy. It's great that we are going to tell about these successes in advocacy work. That the University Collegium finally in March will move to a genuinely even tripartite system. So each group, professors, middle tier employees and students will each have 16 seats in the Collegium. So big thank you to the student representatives for doing the work to achieve this. And we were also recently informed that our old rector has now moved away from their task, and Sari Lindblom has been elected, who has acted as the standing for Jari Niemelä during his sickness leave. So Sari Lindblom will act as rector until the end of this term. So all the best to both Jari and Sari. Then about international issues. We have the International Committee. We have now started it. We also have the chairs there. I was planning the action plan, budget, etc. So it's excellent that we have managed to really kick it off now. We have a great group of people there. 10 people, or actually 12, in this committee. the action plan that we'll present. So have this canvassing of the material. Also, the association vocabulary is almost complete. You can send it to those associations. Those all work together with the university. These ongoing activities, other events for international students. And communications. We are reforming our website. We changed the service provider at the turn of the year. So we are now looking into it, what we should prioritize with the budget that we have. And we'll make the changes there throughout the year. If you haven't yet heard about HYY app, get ready for it. It's coming up. Our own app, so that we would have our own services in the app. Maybe develop some of our member services through that as well. It will include event information, contact details for associations, etc. Hopefully we can launch it before autumn. And finally, we have a few articles in Helsingin Sanomat. But Ylava, the Lyra building. And also Syl and Alex from the board were also interviewed about remote studying, its effects. So the second article is about that. But yes, those were the news from the central office. Do you want to hear more about some of these topics? Thank you, Tommy. Do your representatives have anything to ask, anything to comment? You can request the floor via chat if you have something. If not, then we'll thank Tommy and move on to item 3, updating election regulations. Presenting, we have Chair of the Board, Alex. Yes, thank you. Just a moment. I'll open the slideshow, the presentation. Okay, so let's look at the update to the election regulations. The changes. What changes we have? So, major changes. Removing the entry about the physical ballot box. Because we haven't had the elections that use a real physical ballot box, we have used the electronic system. And also making the election void via this so-called emergency brake mechanism. And also make it possible to run as candidates through an electronic system. And also about the role and position of election officials, and also some clarifications and grammar corrections. So first, doing away with the physical ballot box. We've had the electronic voting system in use since 2016. It has worked very well. Back in the day, we left the ballot box option there if there were any failures with the electronic system. But it's been 8 years since we've last had a physical ballot box elections. And actually, there's no one in addition to Memmu at the central office who would have even been here who had any experience about ballot box vote. So we think that if we would need to have a ballot box election, it would be very difficult. In the preliminary discussion in December, the Representative Council said that we should just remove the entry about the ballot box in this document. And then making the election results void using this so-called emergency brake mechanism, because now there is no entry in the election regulation where it would talk about information security breach in the electronic system when the elections are ongoing. So in this new entry, the section 25, it tries to address this potential situation. And it's behind several so-called locks, this emergency brake mechanism, so that it can only be used in actual situations where there are breaches in data security. And if this emergency brake mechanism is used, then the election officials need to make a report about these information security incidents, and they have to state that they are very significant, these incidents, these breaches, and that they have affected or may affect the elections significantly. And also Central Election Committee would need to decide on using the emergency brake system with a majority of 5/6. We have the chairs of the Representative Council and 3 actual members in the Central Election Committee, and also 5 deputy members. And in the Regulation Committee that prepares these kind of things for the board, there was a discussion about what kind of majority would be good for using the emergency brake system. Should it be unanimous or 2/3 or what? But we felt that a majority of 5/6 would be best, because it's a very significant action to take to make the results void. But if there's a situation where the actual disruptor of the elections has made their way into the Central Election Committee, that they would not be able to alone prevent the using of the emergency brake system. And also the report about these data security breaches need to be given before marking down or entering the election results in the minutes. So before the results are known. So after the Central Election Committee already knows the results, then they cannot be made void anymore. So if we don't have this emergency brake system, and we would need to dispute the results, then we would need to do it via court proceedings. So, and also about the electronic system for running as candidate. Before this, it has had to be done using actual physical papers. And in the 2020 remote elections, the Central Election Committee approved scanned candidate applications. So we think that it would be good that this could be done electronically in the future. That's why we have made also some changes to the language. So instead of a signature, we talk about verification, and instead of form, talk about announcement or in a way confirmed by the Central Election Committee. And instead of document, we talk about data or details or information. And then about the role and position of election officials. Before we had talked about officials and deputy officials, but now we think that we should talk about them in an equal manner, that all officials are equal. So there will be no deputy officials. And election officials means specifically the people who watch over the election system and how the election progresses. So whose election workers are not election officials. And in section 5, we have verified this principle of dual control, so that there need to be at least 2 election officials. And also some clarifications, corrections to grammar and language. So, if we move towards purely electronic elections, we have made some word changes because of that. And also changes to kind of a different forum when talking about drawing lots. And also the terms have been made more modern and in accordance with our values. I think that was pretty much it. Are there any questions or comments about this? Thank you, Alexi. The Representative Council has been delivered this attachment beforehand, and the Preparatory Committee has already dealt with it, has gone through it. So when making a possible proposal for change, please use the Preparatory Committee's template when making your proposals. Opening general discussion. Actually, do we first have the speech from the Preparatory Committee?
Is the Preparatory Committee... We may state that the Representative Committee chairperson is not here, but we may state that the Preparatory Committee has handled the matter. Now we'll go to the general discussion next. First off, request on the floor. Emmy Westermark Snef, might be in Swedish. Topic with tabling the electoral order. Hopefully Emmy will take the floor and announce the 5 seconds needed for this motion. Thank you. So, I hope I present that we will table the election regulations issue stating the 5 individuals. The election regulations state how democracy works in the student union. It's one of our most important documents. We feel that the Representative Council did not get enough information in the allocated time. For example, the grounds document that would have helped to understand what kinds of updates will we be facing. The first time when any information was given was in the Preparatory Committee, which was a bit late, because Preparatory Committee members have not had the opportunity to discuss the changes with their groups. Of course, this is a very special day with the war in Ukraine beginning, so this must be weighing in on everyone. It's been a shock to many individuals. We feel that simply this is an important issue that we should look at this with the proper time allocated for preparations. I would not propose this unless I would know that this is not that urgent. Thank you. Thank you. At this stage, I will give the commenting right to the board if they wish to comment. Thank you, Chairperson. And thank you to Snef for the motion. At this stage, when we've been telling that there's not enough information, I would ask at this stage if there's something that you want to know then you may, of course, say it here and ask it here. And in general, we hope that we would receive all the questions before the meeting. And in the preparatory committee, there has been the opportunity to ask and to prepare answers to questions. I would also like to state that approving the election regulations, we have a quite strict timetable. It will go to the rector of the university after it's been approved by the student union. So if we would table it now, we would be accepting it in the next meeting. So in order for the rector to be able to approve the document before we start our CEC training, it would be unsure. And if the rector would not have time to do this, then it would mean that next fall's HYY elections would be held with the current election regulations. So if you have any acute questions, we may answer them gladly in this meeting. Thank you. Thank you to Alexi. To my eyes, it doesn't seem like no other request for the floor have been submitted, aka what Alexi asked, these questions regarding the contents, etc. If you have them really quickly now and you're missing the forms, you may ask for the floor through chat. You may be a bit flexible at this stage, and hopefully we should give the information out that if the Representative Council thus wishes, we may decide this as urgent. So we need a 2/3 majority to declare this urgent, but looks like we will be tabling this because we have 5 members requesting it, and I noticed that we have a request from Emmy on the chat. Please. Thank you, Chairperson. I would comment a bit on Snef's portion that we would have wished that this grounds memo and all the backgrounds would have been brought to the groups with the material before the representative preparatory committee meeting in order for us to be able to look at the issue with more time. That this would be a good ground for this preparatory committee. So we feel like it was too late. Thank you. Sami Hasunen has requested general floor that has not been visible here for me for some reason, but please, Sami. So, the Chairperson, the General Assembly, on the 6th of January last year, will held its breath whether or not democracy would have been happening in the US with the American presidential elections. Thus, we had a large risk that the vice president will not recognize the electoral results. And they said that stated in the end that they do not have this kind of power, and everybody was hopefully joyous that the electoral results were presented. And I have to say that this mechanism of an emergency break, I don't see it as a bad thing, but as it stands currently is a bit queer to democracy. I won't accept that you may have a 5/6 majority to denounce the election results, especially when the group doesn't contain member base from all the groups, but rather a small group. Either we increase this organ of trust size in order for it to actually represent the will of the Representative Council, or then we will leave these kind of systems out. So denouncing an election is a very, very strict case. It should be decided by a democratic composition, not a composition which is not truly democratic. And I feel that we share SNEP's ideas, and I share the concerns of the electoral regulations. I don't know if I have the energy to do this fight, and it might be that I will be including myself in the tabling party unless I see that this representative council will take these problems seriously. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Sami. At this stage, I would wish the final requests for the floor. And actually, we'll request that we'll not continue the detailed discussion. We'll comment on the tabling, notifying also that if we don't have any adverse requests on, of course, if nobody wants to make this urgent, we will be just tabling this with the 5 individuals requesting. So if you have countermeasures, you should voice them now. So we have Linna Partonen. It was request for the floor. Linna, thank you. I would countermand the tabling. I felt that we had enough information and on time. Thank you. Checking from Linna, are you wanting to move this to... With a motion to declare this matter urgent, we would vote, and it would be a 3/4 majority that we need to state this as urgent. Yes, yes, sorry, I will propose this as an urgent matter. Thank you. So we have the request. If you don't have want to have any grounds this way or the other, both options are good. We will move to vote. Updating the request for the floor list. Thus, we have no other requests. Thank you. And through the chat, we don't have any requests either, so we will be moving to vote on the urgency floor to the Secretary General, who will give the instructions. Thus, links should have been coming to you all now. If you haven't received one, please contact us. Nobody has done so, at least so far. But this is the good situation or opportunity to seek for it. We'll be moving to vote. On the urgency matter. And in this vote, by voting yes, you'll be voting for the urgency, and no, you're voting against the urgency. And because as a clarification, when you are voting no, it means that the item will be tabled. Okay, we have a message that you haven't received your HYMA link. Let's look at this one moment. So the voting is not active. We are looking at the one missing link. So we'll look at this first. We'll have to send the I'll have to send the invite maybe again. Technical challenges. We'll have a 5-minute break, getting the ducks in a row, as it were, and then get the missing links. 5 minutes, continuing at 6 p.m. like we should be returning from break. Should have the vote ready. Should be sending it to you. The link should be now with you. And you may send to me or directly to the chat if you, for some reason, do not have it. So, looks like we may move to vote. So, Mikko, please. So, yes, the vote is now ready at table. By voting yes, you vote for the urgency, and voting no, you will vote kind of against the urgency. For the tabling in this case, voting for empty means you vote for empty, and abstain from the vote. Next up, I'll be sharing my screen to you. So we may move in real time and see how the vote progresses. Meaning the people who have voted, not the results in real time in this case, of course. Does everybody have a successful voting? We see like we have 91% who have managed to vote. Do we need more time? Yes, we need a moment, please. So yes, we will give some time. I haven't received, or I don't see a vote of any type. So who was this? Vielä Pentikäinen. Let's see. I know that everybody has 2 HYY links. The vote is behind the new link, so please check you are in the correct link, because the old link does not any vote show anything at this point. Looking at many individuals have managed to vote it, so it is there. So please check well in advance. Thank you, Rina. We'll have these for everyone. So take your time checking the link. You may vote and get to vote and send me a message if you, for some reason, can't vote. Do we have individuals who have not yet voted, or have all the prerequisite individuals had the chance to vote? And maybe open your mic. You may open your mic and say if you have a problem with the vote for some reason or another. Our interpretation is that everybody has had the chance to vote, so we will close the vote. So, yes, so the situation is that we do not have a 3/4 majority, so the electoral regulations have been tabled. Closing item 3, updating the election regulations. Moving on to item 4, board's announcement of operations in 2021. And at this stage, I will give the floor to the board. And we will have several presenters from the board. Could we act in accordance so that we may take the questions for after each board member's presentation, so you can get it kind of effectively. Let's take the questions at the end. So, request for the floor presented, and then let's simple is best. So at this stage, the board, please.
Yes, thank you. I'll start the presentation, slideshow. Yes. Now we can hear the Swedish interpretation. So yes. Presenting our action plan, office action plan. Based on program of objectives, at opening a seminar at central office, where we worked on the action plan for this year. Those are my points of focus for this year. So, about the different sections in the action plan. Divided this into 2. This is about the elections, the year of elections. Benny will talk about member services and Jenny about other issues. Tommy will talk about international student issues and about board student representatives in general. We will have Nea. Kalle about Moodle. So, first, elections. Karina, yes, hopefully you can hear me. So the representative council elections, the most important things, that the entire elections will be done electronically. Also the running as candidates and the founding of election coalitions. So we don't have to use these physical papers anymore. So before the elections, to support the groups, advertise for the elections well before they start. In practice, what this means is that we will have from the election coordinator for the parliament elections, better communications regarding the elections, who's ABC, about the basics of who. Because when people don't know what representative council is, it is related to the fact that whose operations feel very distant. So, making who more well-known and familiar throughout the spring. And also granting support and help for candidates. Also advertising candidates and the elections in different events, so the freshman adventure, opening carnival, etc. And we'll maybe have a kind of a election plaza as well. And one significant issue is that elections will be visible on all campuses widely. We will be trying to support the groups in elections with general ground rules. Sometimes have been quite ambiguous of how the advertising can be done. So try to provide clearer guidelines for that. And encourage them to host their own election panels, for example. And also to have this kind of activities related to elections also in the downtown Viikki and Meilahti. Downtown and Viikki are mentioned because the kind of this related to the instructions from the university. And Kumpula and Meilahti don't have the similar resources for these election plazas. So we try to have election panels, for example. So that all campuses will be taken into account. And then at the end of the elections, try to have pop-up election points. And Unicafe will provide the election buns for voters. Yes, hello. We'll be presenting the second part here about the parliamentary elections. So we will have a completed parliament election program, the basis of which will base our advocacy work on. In the spring, we will meet with our interest groups and political actors. Interest groups include Helsinki University, SYL, and the like. There's a preliminary discussion where you can have a comment on what you want to see in the parliamentary election program. Based on that, we will start preparing the program, which will be approved in May's meeting. And after it has been approved by the representative council, we will start lobbying the political parties' election platforms and have an advocacy or lobbying program. And then we also hire a parliamentary election coordinator at the end of the year. Support the next year's our activities next year. That was it for me. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Let's move on to equality issues, equality work. So in the program of objectives, there were a lot of good goals related to equality work in WHO. So let's start with anti-racism and anti-ableism plan of action. So we have worked together with the equality sector, so that we want as early as possible to hear from you, members that represent council, and also who's members on this. And in March and April, we will have 2 evening schools. One is for anti-racism and the next is for anti-ableism. Also planned that in March RepCo meeting, we will have a preliminary discussion on the issue. But it's not yet confirmed because there are many other preliminary discussions in this meeting as well. In February, we will look into having an equality expert about this to do these measures after your comments on proposals. For the program of measures, me and our expert Tia will start writing it together with our external equality expert, and hopefully we can get it finished in May at the latest, so we can approve of it in September or October. And in that program of objectives, one of the objectives was also to canvass or look into our interest groups and cooperation partners. We have done that already in February. And also one objective was to have anti-racism training for people at the central office. So the plan is to, during February and March, to look into a person providing this training, and the actual training will be held on the 17th of June. Then a training for associations. Have an equality training for them. We already had some training for related to anti-racism. And for the autumn semester, we are planning to hold the next training, which most likely will be about accessibility. In February and March, for the association sector, we will look into examining the association materials, possibly also update them in February and March, so that they will be ready, these updates, in May. And in the autumn semester in August, we will look into the accessibility of our association spaces, and based on that, we will have write down the accessibility information. The associations can communicate better about accessibility issues to everyone. I think this is the last slide about the equality work. So this is the ongoing work. In the program of objectives, we hope that the implementation of the measures in the equality plan, so this is part of our ongoing work. So the equality sector will monitor throughout the year that these actions are actually implemented. And in March, we will look into our website, areas of development, what to fix, And then also your schedule about these measures. Also communicate to you about them. Yes. And then services, member services. Thank you. Talk a bit about our member service project. So we can divide this into 2 phases, in the spring and autumn. In the spring, we will do the finishing touches on the member service survey. And in the autumn, we will start implementing the plans so we can have them up for approval for the European Council in time. So for the spring, we will highlight our existing member services in whose events and social media. There's the first we can collect feedback and suggestions about new member services, but also brought up in the survey that many of our services are very unfamiliar to our members. So to be very purposeful and good to highlight our existing services to make them more well-known. And then as part of the website reform, we will have own extensive page for member services, listing them. And then also have flyers regarding member services that we will be handing out at campus when handing out the student card or the semester stickers. In the spring, we'll finish our member service survey, the report on that. And also look into the results of the survey. And maybe also look into our possible new services. And in June, the goal is to launch our own HYY mobile app as a new service. Hopefully we can finish it in time. And for the autumn, the updating of the medium-term financial plan and budget. In connection to them, also develop our existing services and consider new services. So we bring these to the budget discussion. And the goal is to start preparing them already this year, so we can introduce them as early as possible in 2023. Also, as part of ongoing activities, the goal is to have more feedback channels that we can use to assess the significance of our current member services and membership. Thank you. Just next. We have participation opportunities and advocacy work for international students. So yes, the international committee, its launch is at the center of this. It's also at the center of the action plan for this. So the main point is that the committee's actions is voluntary and proactive. So kind of encourage the people to create their own kind of operations, not dictating to them that what they should do, but so that they could create their own places for advocacy and own operations and support them in that. We will look into our internal communications and operations so that they're also suitable for international students. And this includes, for example, that in our committee training, we take into account the needs of international students. And then about advocacy, we have some stakeholder interest group meetings with, for example, university staff. That's one place for influencing for advocacy work. And also look into what subjects they're interested in to give them more platforms to participate. And then about the events, hope that the committee it would be possible for them to take part in our events and also organize their own events. We have some big events coming up this year. And actually next week we'll have a meeting with the event sector about how to make our events more easily approachable and more meaningful also for international students. Second, we have the HYY material update. Because it's just not enough that they're translated, but there also needs to be kind of particular perspectives, international perspectives need to be taken into account. So kind of taking into account how international students see our activities. So look into our existing materials and develop them so that they would better serve our associations. And as a concrete example of the materials, for example, the internationalization guide, the ABCs of internationalization, we should update that. Also, we have this trilingual vocabulary about association activities, which is now well underway. So these are some concrete examples of the materials. And we also do this updating together with the international students. So, because of course, otherwise we can't know what they want from us, what kind of communications. And this kind of segue to the next part, supporting associations' international activities. So approaching them via international association, for example, to better understand their needs and make and improve our trainings. And when we have this kind of shared network between international organizations and the student union, then we could kind of better inform them how to make their activities more accessible. And so yes, organizing meetings and trainings throughout the year. And last, working or acting towards the university. So I think that when we can't reach international students, or kind of there are some places where it's difficult for us to reach international students. In some places, it's difficult for university to reach the international students. So making our cooperation closer, we could help each other. I'll start discussions about this with the university. And a concrete example is to have this centralized service points for international students at the university. This may also refer to a website that has all the information of where to get help. Or a designated member of staff who could help people in these issues. We are actually meeting university staff regarding this next week to discuss the opportunities to promote this. Was had an auditing last year where it was considered how the university's steering activities could be improved, and the comments were that there should be more student perspective. So now would be a good chance to share our perspective, and the committee will do a big part in this. Then, about new plans.
Hello, on my part as well. Wonderful to be here. First meeting of the year. I should talk about student representatives and their support. We managed to get quite a broad package about this, and we decided to break it down into smaller targets. Started to design these faculty rounds, Moodle, communications, and the committee. First off, for these rounds, so we had these before, then we had the COVID pandemic, trying again now. Goals include getting an active contact to our parties, consent parties, and map on what is actually the point here, that what worries do people have. We have significant advocacy and whose own advocacy there. So we are conducting the rounds. We'll meet with leadership, member base representatives, looking at the mapping of possible challenges, needs for training, and this should support our own advocacy work. We're building the relationship between who and the parties, and especially me, Matilda, and Marco in charge here. Carl next. Hello. It's in Swedish, so I'll talk about the Moodle. So supporting these students work, and the tasks would be to create a Moodle platform which we will collect useful materials on, with trainings, videos, and other support material. When combining the material and bringing them together, we'll go through the web pages and utilize the material found on the web pages, along with feedback from student representatives. The responsibility here is with the volunteer sector and the educational policy sector, with timetable to be for the end of the spring and the fall. This from the slides. The speaker is speaking in Swedish. Then we may continue. Okay, moving on. On communications. Talked about communications and active discussions. Measures, we've thought about creating communication channels between the student representatives and who, discussion between the groups. We could have representation from whose sectors as well. On communicative channels, important bit being that we would have support to the organizations according to their needs, and so on. These are the relevant news. Started last year. We started them, and we have these greetings with times and things being done. We'll continue in these this year. Then we decided to do this kind of mini guide where we'll be giving the bullet points on whose student activities, study activities in a nutshell, also including the individuals who are in charge of them. So we'll bring the central office closer to the parties. Also the mapping of needs and responsibilities go to that me and Aku have the mini guide. The Corpo sector has the current affairs and continuation, and the volunteer sector has the feedback form and its publishment. Last year we have the student and study committee, where the goal we will mention that strengthen the cooperation, strengthening the role of the committee as part of the sector. Actions include active discussion with the committee. The sector will visit their meetings, and we've already met with them and already planned for the upcoming activity, so things have started up pretty nicely. This is an entire year project as well, which will be continued with meeting visits. And the Corpo sector is in charge of this. Thank you. Yes, thank you. That concludes our plan of work. Do you have any questions about any items? Thank you, Alexi, and the entire board for a good presentation. Here I can see on the list we have 0 requests for the floor, but if you quickly have an idea that you want to bring forth, then please do so. For item 6. Sorry, we're discussing with the Secretary General on what we will have in what point of the meeting, but we're checking at this stage once quickly that Onni Nyman, did you want this, your request for this item, or for Meta for your request to the floor? Item 6, please. So yes, looks like no requests for the floor currently, so no questions for now. This is something that will be marked as for your information. So we'll mark this as information received. Hopefully the board will have a productive year. Moving on to item 5, announcements for informative purposes. We'll have them on the agenda as a list of information. We'll mark them as items. Moving on to item 6, Meta, other possible issues. Onni Nyman has the floor. Sorry, technical challenges. Hopefully you can hear me. So, dear Chairperson, dear Representative Council, it's nice to start the new year with the Representative Council, regardless of what happens abroad. The year will definitely be interesting, not only in the student union, but also to the elections. The elections will be an important point. We want to focus on the good spirit. In the Representative Council, for the first time, we've had a large change in its operational principles. HELP is now in opposition. This reiterates the requirement for good cooperation and good culture between groups to ensure the best possible working culture. And HYY wishes to do its very best. So, primum non nocere from the ancient times is very, very prudent today as well, something I would like to see with the RepCo. The starting situation is difficult. We need to ensure that things will progress to a better or best possible level, after which we may be more ambitious in our future endeavors. Thus, we hope that we will have a good culture of operation and to work with different objectives. Let's keep ourselves credible for the betterment of all students. Thank you. Thank you, Onni. I don't have any other requests for the floor at this point, so I will assume that no other requests will be up and coming, and I will be using a speech myself. So I would like at this stage, if we do have requests, who wants to speak? Say it on the chat if you Sami Hasunen, osakunnan, please. Thank you. Logical. It looks like all my requests have been lost. I have submit them, but the chairperson, the representative council, it is not surprising that this has been what kind of a day this has been. I would propose that we have a 1 minute silent moment, and as everybody should guess at this point, has to do with the Ukraine situation. Thank you, Sami. A very good proposal. And Sami Nurminen seconds this. So let us do this for 60 seconds, that is, for the situation in Ukraine and to support them. Thank you to all participants for your show of solidarity. Thus, the world situation is pretty serious. I'd like at this stage to speak a bit and to thank the Representative Council for a good meeting, especially for your patience. We have a new chairpersonship which has started its job. So in addition to me, we have Rasmus Olander and Ella Rahikainen have started their tasks. Of course, here we have, we are pretty excited and anxious for our new roles. How will we fit them? So I was very much anxious for the new first meeting. So I thank for all of your support for making it pretty easy to me. Didn't have a lot of technical difficulties either. I'd also like to encourage every member to be on a very low threshold, to contact the chairpersons if you have any wishes regarding us, especially if you wish us to develop in our modes of working. So please send us a message. For example, puheenjohtajat at hu.fi will reach us very nicely. In addition, the group chairs, I've sent a message through email where I have discussed on whether or not we could come visit your group meetings. If you haven't answered me yet, please do so post haste. We'd be happy to go through and meet with all of you and to hear your opinions. So on behalf of the new chairpersonship, we wish a good and fruitful cooperation with all parties and a good, highly cooperative year. Thank you for all the meta. We will move on to the last item, ending the meeting, and ending the meeting at 6:46. Wonderful evening to all of you present. Thank you.